So I thought I would record for you a little bit more. Apologies as I move my mic. I just didn't want to be too far away from it, so I moved it a little bit closer. And hopefully you enjoyed this bit that I'm reading. Right now, you're upstairs. You guys just watched the Reddit stories. Your dad died laughing because of the last one. So, I'll read to you what I can before you come back. Now this is, apparently we're in chapter 12. So, once each September, the teachers had a training day, and we got the day off. Junior year, Evan and Jimmy and I went down to Balboa, ate cheeseburgers on the boardwalk, and watched some terrible 3D movies. That year, I had totally forgotten about the teacher development day until the day before. Unsurprisingly, Todd and the debate crew had a grand adventure planned. They had purchased tickets to a show in LA called Spring Awakening, and Toby was trying, without success, to convince everyone to dress up as the turn-of-the-century schoolboys. Really, you guys should come with us, Phoebe said, when everyone sheepishly realized that Cassidy and I hadn't been included in the original plans. We bought our tickets over the summer, but you could still come even if you got seats in a different section. That's alright, Cassidy said, casually. Ezra and I already have plans. This was news to me. Toby gave me a significant look, and I shrugged, having no idea what Cassidy was talking about. Yeah? You two going gleaning? Sam asked, which made everyone except Cassidy crack up. I should explain. Gleaning is when you pick rotting and bruised crops, the stuff migrant workers leave behind in the field because it's not good enough to sell as produce. It's actually a required field trip for 8th graders. They bus us over to the old ranch lands for the day, complete with a yearbook photographer, and it's just as terrible as it sounds. Toby quickly filled Cassidy in on what we were laughing about. You're not serious, Cassidy said. Y'all had a field trip to pick rotten tomatoes? What about going to the museum? Yeah, Toby said dryly. Not so much. Welcome to Eastwood. On the way to third period, I asked Cassidy what she meant about having plans. She was wearing a white lace dress with straps that wouldn't stay put, but I couldn't help but imagine running my hands over her shoulders, slipping the straps down. Oh, that, Cassidy shrugged. I figured it's the perfect time to start your training. You're going to be my protege, remember? How could I forget? I teased. Good, Cassidy grinned. Pick me up outside Terrace Bluffs at 8:30 tomorrow morning, and bring a backpack full of school supplies. Somehow, 8:30 on Wednesday morning felt horrendously early, as though my brain had convinced it should have been an opportunity to sleep on the day of. I yawned my way through a cup of coffee and joined the line of cars waiting to exit the Rosewood gates on their way to work. When I pulled onto the shoulder outside Terrace Bluffs, Cassidy was sitting on the curb, fiddling with a pair of Ray-Bans. She wore jeans and a plaid button-down shirt, a navy blue backpack by her feet. I'd been expecting another of Cassidy's antique clothing concoctions, but this seemed out of character somehow. But even dressed normally, Cassidy was still someone you'd look at twice without quite knowing why. It was as though she was disguised as an ordinary girl and found the deception tremendously funny. I saw a coyote this morning, she announced, climbing over into the front seat. It was in our backyard, obsessing over the koi pond. Maybe it just wanted a friend. Or it was looking for a koi mistress, Cassidy observed, wryly. It was a reference to a poem, I guess, but I couldn't place it. I shrugged. Had we but world enough and time, Cassidy quoted. Andrew Marvell? Right. It sounded vaguely familiar, like something Moreno had put on an identification quiz back in Honors Brit Lit, but I wasn't exactly a big poetry fan. So where are we going? Where we have no business being, other than the business of mischief and deception, she said. Just drive over to the University Town Center. I have cat hair in the back of my throat. This is really challenging. Ah. I have no idea if it helped or not. Hopefully it did. So I did. And while I drove, Cassidy told me her theory about winning at debate tournaments. The most successful debaters, I'd call them master debaters, but clearly you weren't mature enough to handle that, Mr. Smirky Face, she teased. Knew the reference literature and philosophy and history. Knew to reference literature, philosophy, and history. And the more sophisticated your references are, the better, Cassidy said, toying with the air vent. You don't want to quote Robert Frost, for God's sake. Quote John Rawle or John Stuart Mill. I hadn't heard either of those two guys, but I didn't say anything. Actually, I was trying to figure out if we were on a date, albeit one that had started at 8:30 in the morning. We could still go cleaning, I said, nodding out of the window as we passed one of the remaining orange groves. I don't know why you think that's funny. Haven't you heard? It's my hillbilly way of taking you to a museum. Cassidy shook her head, but I could see that she was smiling. The University Town Center was an odd place to be at 8:45 in the morning. I hardly ever went there ever since it was a 15-minute drive in the direction of Back Bay. This snotty wasp beach town? I have no idea what half of these words are meaning, and my nose is getting stuffy. Actually, the town center straddled the border between Eastwood and Back Bay. Said border consisting mostly of Metrolink stations, a medical complex with which I was intimate familiar, and a golf club where my father was a member. Ironic, isn't it? I said, pulling into the lot, how the town center is in the border of the two towns, but in the center of neither. Cassidy snorted appreciatively. Well, come on, she said, putting on her sunglasses. We're gonna be late for class. Ha ha, I said, but Cassidy didn't seem like she was joking. What are we doing here? What are we really doing here? The town center was the unofficial hangout for the University of California, Eastwood, whose campus was just across the street. I already told you, Cassidy said impatiently, climbing out of the car and shouldering her backpack. Mischief and deception. We're crashing some classes at the university, getting you good and educated in the liberal arts so you make a stunning debut at the San Diego tournament. Voila! Here's our class schedule. Jumping a page. I looked down at the purple post-it she had handed me. History of the British Empire? I read out loud. 17th century literature? Introduction to philosophy? Exactly, Cassidy said smugly. Now hurry up, we're taking the road beyond the road less traveled, and being on time will make all the difference. Won't the teacher notice? I asked, struggling to keep up with Cassidy's fast pace as we took the elevated pathway from the town center to the main campus. We're not exactly enrolled here. First of all, it's professor. And no, they won't notice. I used to spend spring break staying with my brother when he was at Yale, and I randomly sneak into classes when I got bored. They never caught me. Besides, I picked the survey course, the ones with like 100 students. We're just going to appreciate the lectures, take notes on whatever we can use in the debate, and then go on our merry way. Which is basically what happened, in the history of the British Empire at least. We joined 100 other students with an echoey, tired lecture hall and sat through a mildly interesting but mostly dull 50 minutes of imperialism, capitalism, and war economy. I dutifully scribbled down some notes, which was way more than I could say for the bearded guy 2 rows down who spent the entire class playing Angry Wings on his phone. I think it's kind of funny to call it Angry Wings. I don't know if this would have been another game of Angry Birds. Anyways, you texted me, so I'm replying. So? Cassidy asked, once the class had let out and she dragged me into the line of the nearest coffee cart. What did you think? Interesting, I said, because I knew that that's what she wanted me to say. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. Cassidy grinned and poured some sugar into her coffee. Hamlet. And speaking of which, time for some 17th century literature. When we got to lecture hall, something occurred. Something seemed wrong. It was until I noticed the textbooks that I realized why. I think we're in the wrong room, I whispered. Should we go? And then a professor in a funny, flat-bottomed tie strode into the front of the room, and it was too late to do anything but sit there and listen. Somehow we wound up in organic chemistry. I'd done honors chem as a junior, which had been one of the least pleasant experiences of my high school career, and I assumed that organic chemistry would be equally as painful continuation of the same. The professor, this tiny Eastern European guy with a penchant for stroking his little blonde chin beard, rolled up his sleeves. He drew 2 hydrocarbon chains on the board. That much at least I could recognize. One was shaped like an M, and the other like a W. Who can tell the difference? He asked, surveyed the lecture hall. No one was brave enough to even hazard a guess. There is no difference, the professor finally said. The molecules are identical if you consider them in 3D space. He held up 2 plastic models and rotated one of them. They were identical. Now, if you please, he continued, drawing 2 new molecules on the board. What is the difference here? It was mind-blowing. The way I could suddenly see exactly what he was asking, now that I knew to look past the scribbles on the board and to imagine the molecules as they actually were. Come on, doesn't anyone play Tetris? The professor asked, earning a few laughs. And I sneeze. They're opposites, someone called. They're opposites, the professor repeated, picking up 2 new models and rotating them, in the same sense that your left hand is opposite to your right hand. Gracias. I know you said bless you all the times, at least in your head. So, they are mirror images of each other, which is why we call them enantiomers. Sorry, the word was like cut in half and I just could not read it. He went on, talking about how opposites could actually be the same thing and how they all occurred together in nature. Not actually opposites at all, but simply destined to take part in different reactions. It was nothing like the grueling equations we'd be forced to crunch in honors chem. Numbers with exponents so high that I sometimes felt bad for my calculator. There wasn't any math in it at all, just theories and why molecules bonded in 3 dimensions. I didn't understand all of it, but the stuff I did get was pretty interesting. When the class ended, Cassidy turned towards me, a little furrow between her eyebrows. I'm really sorry I mixed up the classroom, she said. What are you talking about? That was awesome! I'd never before walked out of a classroom with my mind racing because of what I learned, and I wanted to savor the feeling as long as possible. It was as though my brain was suddenly capable of considering the world with far more complexity, as though there was so much more to see and do and learn. For the first time, I was thinking that college might not be like high school, and that the classes might actually be worth something. And then Cassidy started laughing. What? I asked, a bit annoyed that she interrupted my private zen moment. No one likes organic chemistry. It's like the worst requirement there is for pre-med. Well, maybe I liked it because I'm not going to be a pre-med. No, you're planning to be a field hand. Cassidy rolled her eyes. Obviously, I'll operate on seasonal schedules. I'll call it spring gleaning. Cassidy whacked me with her notebook. After an unexciting philosophy lecture on something called consequentialism, we walked back to the town center. It was around noon, and the weather had turned scorching. The sky, which was brilliant blue directly overhead, lightened the white gray as it stretched over the mountains. I took off my button-down, which I'd worn over a t-shirt in case it was a date. Cassidy glanced over as I stuffed the collar shirt into my backpack. "What happened to your wrist?" she asked. "Nothing. It's just a brace," I said, not wanting to get into it. "So it's some kind of jock fashion statement?" Cassidy teased. She pushed her sunglasses up into her hair, suddenly becoming serious. "Is that why you always wear long sleeves?" "No," I said, mocking her. "I always wear long sleeves because it's some kind of jock fashion statement." She stuck out her tongue, which made her look like a little kid. "Very mature," I said. "I thought you were pretending to be college students." "Not anymore. Class is dismissed. Now it's lunchtime." We got sandwiches at Lee's, one of the chains you grow up thinking must be everywhere, but it really exists only in California. At Cassidy's insistence, we took our sandwiches across the street to the little slope of rocks and grass that ran alongside the man-made creek and had our picnic in the shade of an oak tree. I needed to burp. Oh, it was so sexy. On the trail above us, bicyclists whizzed by on their narrow path and across the water. I could see another couple spreading out their picnic. Not that Cassidy and I were a couple. I turned up the speakers on my phone and put on the old Crystal Castles album while Cassidy rooted through the grass, picking tiny white flowers and knotting them together into a crown. "Here," she said, leaning into a place of circlet. Into the place the circle. Wow. "Here," she said, leaning in to place the circlet on my head. Why was that so hard? I don't know. Her face was inches from mine, and I could see the freckles that dusted her nose and the gold freckles in the disquieting blue of her eyes. When she pulled away to study what it looked like with the crown of flower in my hair, I had the brief impression that she knew how much she confused me and was enjoying it. "When can I take it off?" I asked. "When you tell me where you're going to apply to college," she said mischievously. I shrugged. My question was easy. "Probably here. Maybe some other state school." I could tell instantly that I said the wrong thing. "That's it?" Cassidy asked. "You're fine with spending your whole life in the same 20 square mile?" Wordlessly, I took off the crown, and I examined it. "Well, it isn't as though I'm going to be recruited anywhere." "Oh." Cassidy's cheeks reddened, and she fiddled with her napkin for a moment. "Sorry, I hadn't realized." "No, it's fine. One state school is as good as the next. I wasn't exactly aiming for the Ivy Leagues." "Why not?" Cassidy asked curiously. "Everyone from Borough is." It wasn't the sort of questions I was used to encountering. Why not Harvard or Yale? The answer was obvious, because no one expected me to attend schools like those, and I'd never shown a serious interest in academics, and I played tennis hoping our team could make the All-State, not training for the Olympics. The vast majority of my classmates, myself included, had never even seen it snow. "I don't really think I'd fit in," I finally said. "No, of course not." Cassidy's tone dripped scorn. "You'd prefer to fit in with the brainless jocks who win high school popularity contests and the vapid girls who worship them. In case you hadn't noticed, I don't exactly fit in with them either." Cassidy started laughing. "Ezra," she said slowly, "everyone has noticed." I leaned over and placed a crown of flowers onto her head, letting her hands linger in her hair just for a moment more than it was necessary. Letting my hands linger in her hair just for a moment more than it was necessary. And I suppose I should have tilted her head up towards mine and kissed her then. But I didn't. I couldn't tell if she was just trying to see if I would, or if she really wanted me to. And I didn't want to find out. Instead, I told her about how it had been for me ever since the accident. I told her how I'd spent nearly 2 weeks in the hospital while the rest of my classmates finished junior year without me. How I missed prom, and the student government elections, and the junior-senior luau. How the first surgery hadn't worked and my mom had cried when she found out that I had to have another. How my tennis coach had come by the hospital and I'd heard him fighting with my dad out in the hallway, blaming me. How my so-called friend had sent a cheesy card they'd all sign rather than visiting. How the doctors made such a big production of telling me that I'd never play sports again that I thought they were going to say I'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. How the worst part was having to go back to school with kids I'd known since kindergarten, and the only thing that had changed was me, because I didn't know who I was anymore, or who I wanted to be. When I finished, Cassidy didn't say anything for a long time. Then she closed the short distance between us and brushed her lips against my cheek. They were cold from her diet soda, and it was over in an instant. But she didn't move away. Instead, she sat down with her jeans touching mine and laid her head on my shoulder. I could feel the flutter of her eyelashes against my neck with every blink, and we sat there for a while, breathing quietly together, listening to the thrum of traffic on University Drive and the gurgle of the creek. "There's this poem," Cassidy said finally, "by Mary Oliver, and I used to write a line from it in all of my school notebooks, to remind myself that I didn't have to be embarrassed of the past and afraid of the future. And it helped. So I'm giving it to you. The line is, tell me, what is it to you, Clint? Tell me, oh my god, I had disease. I blew it out of my nose. Oh my god, okay. The line is, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? We stared at the creek, watching the couple across from us gather their things and head back to the path. Well, I said, what are my options? Let me consult the oracle, Cassidy mused, leaning forward to pull a blade of grass. She examined it in her palm, as though she was reading my fortune. You can sound your barbaric yap over the rooftops, or soften their slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or seize the day, or sail away from the safe harbor, or seek a newer world, or rage against the dying of the light, although that one doesn't start with an S, so it sort of ruins the poetry of it all, don't you think? And here I thought you were going to say doctor, lawyer, or business executive. I laughed. Honestly, Ezra? Cassidy stood up, brushing the grass off her jeans. You'll never escape the panopticon thinking like that. Oh, isn't that sweet? Well, sadly it's just 22 minutes. Well, you haven't actually said you're coming back, so I guess I'll keep reading. You like that. Okay, so chapter 13. That night, I took Cooper out to the end of our cul-de-sac and tossed the ball for him. It wasn't the same as taking him out for a run down. Oh my god. It wasn't the same as taking him for our run down the hiking trails, but he seemed to enjoy it all the same. He even found a wild rabbit to chase, although I don't think that the rabbit particularly appreciated the game, or being hunted as game. But I brought Cooper back to the house. My mom was at the kitchen table with a mug of tea at her elbow, flipping through the TV guide, even though we have on demand and streaming. Where'd you go? She asked. End of the block, I said, pouring fresh water into Cooper's bowl. Tossed around the ball. Off the leash? She looked horrified. Ezra, it's dark aside. He could have been hit by a car. It's a cul-de-sac. I so highly doubt it. Doubt it? Tone, young man. Sorry. I took a pack of cookies out the pantry and opened them. Want one? Not this late, she said. Bring those to the table and tell me about school. I suddenly regretted my foray into the pantry. School's fine, I said, through a mouthful of cookie. Although these are terrible. I thought they were chocolate chip. Carob chip. It's healthier. How are your classes? Good. I need you to sign a permission form for the debate. There's an overnight tournament in San Diego next weekend. An overnight trip? She shook her head. Honey, I don't know. Don't you have physical therapy on Saturdays? I can call Dr. Levine and reschedule, I said, impatiently. And it's not a field trip, it's a tournament. I joined the debate team. Cooper whined for a cookie and I showed him a look that said, Trust me, you don't want these. Is that what your friend from student government are doing this year? Mom asked cheerily. The debate team? Not exactly, I said, trying not to grin at the thought of Jimmy Fuller, our sports team liaison, or Tiffany Wells, our social events chair, hanging out with my new lunch crowd. Toby Ellicott asked me to join. He's captain this year. Oh, Toby! I haven't seen that boy in ages. Mom closed the TV guide and leaned across the table, dropping her voice to a whisper. Tell me, did he turn out to be gay? I choked on the carob cookie. Mom! What? I'm just curious, honey. I stared at her, appalled. It was one of those questions you don't go around asking people. Are you going to sign the permission form, or should I ask Dad? I pressed. Leave it on the counter for me in the morning. I can take you to Nordstorm after school. Oh my god, it's so hard to say these names. I just gotten up the table, and when she mentioned shopping, I froze. Well, if you're going to need you're going to need a suit for the debate team, aren't you? Mom went on, warming to the idea. And we can get you some new clothes as well. Those jeans are a bit baggy now, and I don't want you tripping over the hems. Oh my god, this is ridiculous. She was smiling as though the men's department of Northstorm was a perfect opportunity for us to spend some quality time together. And then I came up with the idea. Actually, I said, I'll go with Toby. He'll know what I'll need for the tournament. That's a great idea. Just use your father's credit card. Gay boys have such a wonderful taste in clothes. You can't just buy a suit off the rack. Cassidy cocked at me horrified. The same Vampire Weekend song from Back to School pep rally seeped through the invisible speakers, permeating the men's department of Nordstorm. I sighed, overwhelmed by the endless stretch of clothing racks. Toby, Cassidy whined. Tell him. Seeing how all of my suits come from the fine atelier of Messrs. Salvation and Army, I wouldn't know. Toby grinned, enjoying my discomfort, but he definitely needs a pink button-down. Like hell I do, you guys suck. Do we need some help over here? Smiling. A smiling sales lady who could have been one of our classmates' mother asked. We do, actually, Cassidy said brightly. Did you all do complimentary tailoring on suit jackets? An hour later, I had a trunk full of shopping bags and a tailoring slip for a new suit, which I could pick up in a week. It could have been worse, Cassidy said, patting me on the shoulder as we climbed back into my car. You could have spent 2 hours trying on different types of trouser pleatings with your mom. You haven't met his mom, Toby laughed. It would have been 3 hours, and a surprise haircut. When did you two join forces? I grumbled. Not soon enough, apparently, Cassidy grinned. Now, who wants to study for Mr. Anthony's quiz? Why is my nose so clogged all of a sudden? What is happening to me? I love reading for you, and I know you don't always just hear me with a stuffed nose, but I started to feel like all the recordings are gonna be me stuffy. My ears get clogged sometimes, oh my god, and my throat is like not doing great. Ugh. So, Toby's schedule was a flip of hours. He had English first and then history. How about you guys just give me the answers at break tomorrow, Toby suggested. How about I glue your bow tie around your neck, Cassidy retorted. I'd like to see you try. Toby laughed and turned on the radio. Now let's get the hell out of Prism Center, now that we got all what we came for. Are we studying somewhere, or am I dropping you back at the flail whale? We're studying, Toby sighed. We drove over this giant sprawl of superstores near school called the Legacy. It was nice spreading out our stuff in the Barnes and Noble's cafe, drinking coffee and studying with other people like it was some sort of social activity. I'd never done it before. Well, I had, when Charlotte insisted that we do our homework together in Starbucks back when we first started dating, but that was mostly her rubbing my pant leg under the table until we had to give up on studying and go back to her house since her parents were never home. So I suppose I never studied effectively with other people. Sure, Cassidy teased me, pretending she'd mess with my drink when I came back from the bathroom. She hadn't, she just wanted to make me suspicious. But we actually got work done. Oh, you just joined call. Okay. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 pages. I can read this fast. By the time we were reasonably prepared for the quiz, it was getting late. So, Faulkner, Toby said. I might be wrong, but I think you want to buy me dinner because I was such help picking up a tie. Fine, I said. It had always been like this, even when we were kids. My $5 per week elementary school allowance had financed the bulk of his Sour Patch Kids and Pokemon card addiction. Let me tell my mom I won't be home for dinner. I took out my phone, stepped onto the magazine section, and quickly assured my mom that no, we weren't having fast food, and yes, I bought everything that I needed. Can I pause the recording? I don't think so. That's kind of sad. Alright, I'll just text you back. I'm recording right now. Give me 10 minutes. You'll probably like that. I took out my phone, bought everything I needed. The conversation wasn't ending anytime soon, so I sat down on the bench and flickered through a copy of Rolling Stones someone had left, wishing she'd learned how to text. Yeah, I got like loafers or something with rubber bottoms. I remember that part. I don't know, sort of red-brown. I sighed, wishing she'd lose interest. Mom, I said forcefully, everyone's waiting. I have to go. Yeah, I'll be home for 9. Okay. Okay, bye. Oh, shut up, I said when I got back to our table at the cafe. I didn't say anything, Toby grinned broadly. Your silence is judging me. That's probably true, Toby admitted. We walked across the parking lot to In-N-Out Burger, which doesn't technically count as fast food since you have to wait for it. Do you know about their secret menu? Toby asked Cassidy. Because you can order all sorts of things. Root beer floats, animal-style fries. Obviously, Cassidy rolled her eyes. I have lived in California before. No, really? Toby mocked. Well, do you know about the palm trees? I asked. Both of them stared at me. I grinned. There are 2 palm trees planted in an X. Outside of all the ins and outs, I said. It's from some old movie the owner liked, because in the film, a treasure was buried there. That's terrible, Cassidy said, pretending a fast food place is a buried treasure. I don't know, I said. I think it's cool. Most people don't know about it, but when you do, you look for the X every time you drive past the In-N-Out. Like IHOP, said Toby. My cousins call it dohi, since that's IHOP upside down. It gets in your head. You'll see it, an upside down dohi sign next time you pass one. Trust me. Immediately, I thought of the hydrocarbon chains in organic chemistry, the same thing upside down, and how knowing to look for it changes your whole perspective. I almost mentioned it, since Cassidy would know what I was talking about, but I didn't. Not because they think I was weird or nerdy, but because the moment was so perfect, it just didn't need anything else. Dude, Toby whispered as we took our order receipt. Did you know that Justin Wong worked here? I shrugged. Must pay well. Justin was in his math class. He was a pretty forgettable guy, except for his car, this ridiculously souped-up Honda. The kind kids of school referred to it as a rice rocket. What the fuck is a rice rocket? That sounds incredibly racist. We were filling our drinks from the soda machine when I first heard a familiar peal of laughter. My shoulders stiffened. Oh, kill me. Toby leaned against the soda machine, staring at them. Sure enough, Charlotte, Evan, and Jimmy were in the good corner booth, the big one by the window, where we always used to sit when we came here. Do you think we should just get to it? Get it to go? Toby muttered. Go where? I asked. There can never be burgers in my car because then my car will smell like burgers, and trust me, that's a risk I'm not willing to take. We could always put them in the trunk, Toby suggested desperately. I'm not eating a burger that's been in anyone's trunk, Cassidy said. We could eat them in the parking lot, Toby said. Because that isn't obvious. I rolled my eyes. They're sitting right by the window. We clustered around the ketchup pump, eyeing the table. They'd just gotten their food and clearly weren't planning to leave anytime soon. One of the In-N-Out employees, some kid from a different school, dropped off 3 more burgers and fries at their table. Hey Ezra, Justin Wong called. I had Angela bring your food over to your table. I stared at Justin, not comprehending, and then I realized those burgers were ours. Awesome, I said hollowly. Thanks. Shit stickers. Toby swore softly. Well, come on. I said it as though we were standing outside of the funeral service and might as well go in. Oh good, you mean I get to hang out with your old friends? Cassidy grinned hugely. Be nice, I warned. You think I brush my teeth and sharpen my tongue every morning? The way he goes on? Cassidy complained. Oh, okay, wait, I read in a weird tone. You think I brush my teeth and sharpen my tongue every morning, the way that he goes on? Cassidy complained. More like brush your teeth and dulled your wit, said Toby. It was Evan who spotted us first. His surfer's baritone carried across the restaurant as he raised his soft drink in the air like some sort of toast and called, Yo, Faulkner, get your gimp ass over here. Hey, I said sheepishly as we shuffled towards the table. What's going on? Just chilling, Evan said. Jimmy nodded enthusiastically. He was eating a 4x4 animal style, a gooey, thick stack of meat patties oozing sauce. There was another identical burger on his tray, because apparently one wasn't enough. He took a bite, and it reminded me of that video I'd seen on YouTube of a mountain lion devouring a gazelle. So, funny story, I said, but Justin sent our food over here to your table. Who? Charlotte asked blankly. Justin, I repeated. The guy behind the counter, he's in her year at school. I couldn't figure out why she didn't know who I meant. Then I realized that Charlotte had always done this. Pretended not to know which classmate you were talking about, as though she was above remembering certain people. Oh, Charlotte frowned, disinterested. Well, whatever. You're here now. Join us. Yeah, dude, plenty of room. Pop a squad, Evan said. We hadn't discussed it, but I knew the plan was to get our food and calculate the physics of which table was the farthest from this booth, that table being the optimal place to enjoy our food. But I couldn't exactly refuse, not after the way I'd blown everyone off without an explanation ever since school started. Sounds good, I said with a shrug, sliding into the booth. I could feel Cassidy's hand on my sleeve, as though she wanted me to know that she'd slide in first so I could take the end. But I gritted my teeth and scooted along the pleathercy, not wanting my old friends to see how useless I was. Where's Jill? I asked, unwrapping my food. I dumped half of the fries onto my tray and wordlessly passed Cassidy the little paper container since we were sharing. Charlotte watched me split the container of fries as though it meant something significant. She's stuck doing some student government crap. I don't even know. But it'll give us a chance to know your new friend. Charlotte's smile dripped venom as she stirred the straw in her milkshake. We all bit into our burgers. 3 tables away, a kid too big for his high chair screamed for dessert while his parents calmly ate the food, ignoring him. Faulkner, you didn't come to my party, Jimmy accused. Yeah, sorry. How was it? Connor McCleary showed up wasted and tossed the keg into the pool. Jimmy shrugged philosophically. And my bitch-ass neighbor called the cops? We had to pretend it was a church barbecue. Fucking church barbecue? That actually worked? Toby asked, floored. No. Jimmy took another bite of his burger. So, Cassidy, Charlotte asked brightly, where did you move from here again? Chino? Compton? Cassidy smiled at the insult as though she found Charlotte extremely funny. San Francisco, Cassidy said. But I've lived all over the world, really. London, Zurich, even down in Louisiana for a couple years. Oh, Charlotte's face fell as she considered this. I've always wanted to visit Europe. Where does your class trip go? Cassidy wanted to know. We all looked at her blankly. You don't have those? Cassidy asked, disbelieving. Seniors don't go to Spain or somewhere to tripes through museums and churches for a week? I started laughing. We go to Six Flags. Good thing it's not Disneyland, Charlotte said sweetly, with a glance in Toby's direction. At this, Evan burst out laughing. Babe, he spluttered, trying to get it under control. You're pure evil. Whatever, you love it, Charlotte retorted, touching her index finger to the tip of his nose. It was so adorable that I almost threw up all over my adorable pile of fries. So, has everyone studied for Mr. Anthony's quiz? I asked hurriedly, changing the subject without thinking. What quiz? Jimmy asked nervously. AP Euro, Cassidy said. Dude, none of us are in AP, Evan chuckled, cramming a fistful of fries into his mouth. It's senior year, said Jimmy. I've only got 5 classes. Counting tennis. Counting tennis? That takes balls, Toby muttered. Cassidy snorted, and I tried not to. Evan reached over and snagged a handful of fries off of Charlotte's plate. She fake pouted and slapped his hand as he crammed them into his mouth, laughing. I'm hungry, Evan said, by way of apology. Rocking it hard at practice this afternoon. Hell yeah, Jimmy affirmed. I love you. Sorry, you were texting me. They bumped greasy fists over the napkin dispenser. Toby winced. So, Ezra, Charlotte said, how come you're not sitting with us at lunch anymore? All eyes were on me. I shrugged and took a pull of my drink, stalling. The family with the screaming kid left their tray and trash at the table as they got up. Well, I trailed off, unsure how to answer. Did she honestly want me to say it out loud? That it felt wrong for me to go back like they only wanted me around out of some sense of residual pity? That they'd been lousy friends when I was in the hospital? That she cheated on me the night of the accident? And that, just a little bit, I blamed her for what happened? That, if I came to it, I'd rather eat lunch on a cot in the nurse's office than bear daily witness to Charlotte sitting on Evan's lap. Thankfully, Toby came to my rescue. Faulkner's on the debate team now. They all burst out laughing as though Toby had claimed I joined forces with the kids who brought their laptops and headsets to school to play World of Warcraft during lunch. Dude, for real? Evan asked. Sure, I said. Why not? Can we talk? Charlotte batted her eyelashes, her smile curving dangerously. Unasked, Cassidy and Toby got up so I could extract myself from the booth. In thick, awkward silence, I followed Charlotte over the condiment bar. We hadn't talked, not since Jonas Bideker's pre-prom party, when she'd run after me insisting I better not back out of prom. And there was so much to say, and to avoid saying, that I didn't know where to begin. But Charlotte clearly did. What is up with you? She demanded. You're hanging with Toby Ellicott? And joining the debate team? Charlotte was still in her long squat skirt, ribbon tied around her ponytail, a little blue paw print painted on her cheek. But her expression was far from cheerful. "Well?" she asked, waiting for an explanation. But the thing was, by my reckoning, I didn't owe her one. Not for something as trivial as whom I choose to eat lunch with. "So you and Evan," I countered. "Awesome. You'll have my vote for homecoming court." "Oh, please," Charlotte protested a little too vehemently. "That's not why we're together." "Of course not." I held back a smile, noting how my comment had infuriated her. "This is ridiculous," Charlotte said. "You should come back to our lunch table. It's not your place to sit with those losers. Bring your snotty prep school girlfriend even. I don't care." "We're not losers, and Cassidy and I are just friends." "Yeah," Charlotte laughed, "because so many girls see you and think, now that's a guy I'd like to just be friends with." "What are you talking about?" I was fairly certain that most girls saw me and thought, "That's the kid who almost died at Jonah's party. Used to be a star athlete, but he's like a cripple now. Isn't that so sad?" I raised an eyebrow, waiting for Charlotte to voice the truth of what everyone wasn't saying. Instead, she sighed and swished her skirt as though I exasperated her. It was a move I recognized from the Halcon days of junior year, when we were just starting to date. "Oh my god, Ezra, get a clue. You're all brooding and depressed now, and don't even ask me why, but dark, deep, and twisty totally works for you. You could have anyone you want, so ditch the social outcast and stop lurking over your sprained knee." My sprained knee. Right. I don't even know what to say to that. So I did what I always did around Charlotte, around all my old friends, really. I shrugged and said nothing. "Listen," she said, stepping closer and pouting cutely. "I have a party next Friday. You're coming, right?" Now I was sure she was flirting, but the thing was, I wanted no part of it. "Actually, I'm not. I'm busy." "Doing what?" "Debate tournament," I said, enjoying myself. "All weekend?" "Unfortunately." "Out of town." "You're not serious." I leaned in, closing the distance between us, knowing that I would get away with whatever I said next. "I'm as serious as a car crash." I gave her my most winning smile before heading back to the table. As we walked back to my car, I turned around only once. The sun was sweating and the light strong between the palm trees in the parking lot that had just come on. But even in the purpling night, with the glow of hundreds of tiny lights reflected against the in-and-out window, I could see them sitting there in the large corner booth, the one they'd taken for just the three of them. Their food was finished, but they hoarded the best table at the place as though it was theirs as long as they wanted it. Not so long ago, I would have been there with them, inhaling a double-double after tennis practice, dipping my fries into my milkshake just to make Charlotte squeal in disgust. I would have laughed at Evan and Jimmy's antics because we all knew they were only doing it to see how long until I made them stop. "We're going to get kicked out," I'd warned, shaking my head. "They'll take a mugshot of us in those stupid paper hats and hang it on the wall to shame us." And eventually, when Justin Wong came over to pointedly clear out our trays, I would have shot him an apologetic look when the others weren't watching, knowing that we'd been wrong but had gone away with it anyways. "Well," Cassidy said, climbing into the front seat, "that was exquisitely unpleasant." "Welcome to the OC, bitch," Toby offered. "Let's just go." I put on some music, not wanting to talk about it. Arcade Fire was on the local college station, crooning about grown-ups in the suburbs. I concentrated on the lyrics until I turned back into Princeton's Boulevard. "Tumbleweed," Toby noted. 50 points if you hit it." "In Soviet Russia," I said, doing a terrible accent. "Tumbleweed hits you." I should have done it from the beginning. They're fine. "In Soviet Russia," I said, doing a terrible accent. "Tumbleweeds hit you." "There are no tumbleweeds in Soviet Russia," Cassidy put in. "But speaking of the KGB, What was up with your ex-girlfriend? I laughed hollowly. She informed me that I'm upsetting the status quo, and also that she is having a party next Friday. So are we, Toby said, and I can guarantee you ours is going to be far better and far more exclusive. It will, Cassidy assured me. You've yet to experience the undiluted awesome that is a hotel room party. My single regret in life, I replied. I don't know, Toby mused. That mullet you had in 6th grade was pretty bad. Cassidy laughed. He's lying, I said. It's physically impossible for my hair to mullet. Since when is mullet a verb? Toby grinned. Since you started lying about my having one, I said, turning into the school lot. It was just starting to fill up with cars from the night's football game. I'll drive Cassidy home, Toby said, digging for his keys. I'm fine, Cassidy protested. I don't know why you're all afraid of coyotes. I'm not, Toby said. I'm afraid Faulkner's gonna offer to put your bike in his trunk again, and we all know he'll kill himself lifting it. You're an asshole, I informed him. And at least I didn't have a mullet in the 6th grade. Which is such an amazing line. But I will stop now, because we've just reached chapter 14. I love you very, very much, my darling. Mwah. Did you like my stuffy nose kiss? I love you very, very much. And I hope you enjoyed this recording. I'm gonna be reading you the book. We're close to halfway, just so you know. Mwah. Bye!